In this clip, Joe Rogan and evolutionary biologist Bret Weinstein uncover what might be the largest medical fraud in modern history.
Taking the mRNA COVID shots off the market, I don't understand how they should be so embarrassed and horrified at the harm they did that this should be an easy one.
So how are they still selling it? How are they still pushing it? What are they saying it does for you now?
I mean, I guess they're sticking with their, 14th fallback position of it reduces the harm of COVID.
No, is this because pulling it from the market is an admission of guilt or an admission of knowledge that it's not effective and it's not necessary anymore? And then
something.
The thing is, they don't have to worry, because of the fact that it's classified as a vaccine, they don't have to worry about being sued.
Well, they do. They do.
How so?
The immunity from liability is dependent on there having been no fraud. And there clearly was fraud. So, in light of that...
I didn't know there was any caveats like that.
Yeah.
That makes it much more interesting.
It's much more interesting.
The legal shield protecting vaccine manufacturers is called the PrEP Act. Passed in 2005, it grants immunity from lawsuits during public health emergencies. But there's a crack in the armor. That immunity vanishes the moment fraud is proven. And what Weinstein describes next isn't a gray area. It's black and white.
Yeah, but how do you define fraud? Because they've sold drugs where they had like 10 studies and one of them was good. They're
Let's try
we got
this
a good
one.
study.
Let's try this one.
Okay.
The insufficient amount of safety testing that was done before these things were released was done with mRNA vaccines produced in a process that did not involve DNA. The product that was actually injected into billions of people involved DNA plasmids, and there is massive contamination in the shots that were actually delivered, including the SV40 promoter, simian virus 40. The point is, for you to put your process 1 drug through safety testing and then inject people with something different that has other components that were not tested is fraudulent.
Imagine ordering a car that passed every safety test, then discovering the steering wheel came from a different factory. Untested, unvetted. That's not a recall, that's fraud. Pfizer and Moderna tested one production method in clinical trials. They called it Process 1, small batches, DNA-free, painstaking. Then they manufactured billions of doses using Process 2, faster, cheaper, contaminated. The switch was never disclosed to regulators or the public. Genomics expert Kevin McKernan tested leftover vials from actual injections. He found DNA fragments in every single one, not trace amounts, levels hundreds of times above regulatory limits.
Can I stop you real quick? And
Sure.
So this could be standalone. Could you just explain the whole SV40 thing to people and how it became an issue?
So there are lots of techniques that are used in order to generate a lot of product. Right? In this case, what they used is a plasmid, which is a circular piece of DNA, in order to basically create vats that would grow the product necessary that would later be coated in a lipid nanoparticle. So they used bacteria to do the heavy lifting. There is a requirement that you purify DNA out, and there are standards, which are way too high, but there are standards that you can't go above in terms of how much DNA contamination you can have left over from your production process. But in this case, it isn't even that the quality control is garbage and there was too much stuff left over because the process didn't work very well. The problem is that there was a much more painstaking way of producing technically the same product that did not involve DNA plasmids at all. And so what you've got left over in these vials, and we're talking about largely the work of Kevin McKernan, who took vials that were given to him, stuff that was actually injected in people, there was leftover stuff in the vials, and he tested a bunch of these things, found DNA contamination across the board.
SV40 is shorthand for simian virus 40, a monkey virus discovered in the 1960s, found in early polio vaccines, linked to cancer in lab animals. Scientists stopped using it in vaccines decades ago, but they kept one piece, its promoter sequence, a molecular on switch that tells cells to express genes aggressively. It's standard in lab research. It's not standard in human injections. The SV40 promoter does one thing exceptionally well. It drives genetic material into the nucleus of cells, which means those DNA fragments don't just float harmlessly in the bloodstream. They carry a genetic key to enter the control center of your cells.
So what you're left with is a promoter, which is a genetic trigger that we know is common in lab techniques, and it originally comes from simian virus 40, and we know that it's carcinogenic. So that promoter is left over in vials from shots that were actually injected into people. And that means that all of the things that we were told about the potential for these mRNA shots to integrate into your genome, that was impossible, they told us, right? Well, first of all, it's not impossible. There's lots of interesting stuff that goes on in cells that involves, reverse transcription and things like that. But even what we were told, that there's no DNA, so integration is not an issue, is a lie, because there is DNA left over in these vials, and it's not just some old DNA. It's DNA with the SV40 promoter, which is a genetic engineering tool that has carcinogenic potential. So it seems to me this is clear fraud. You can't inject a different product into the public on the basis of safety testing that was done with something produced by a different process.
The definition of fraud isn't complicated. You test one thing, you sell another. You hide the difference. Billions of people received injections they were told were safe and effective. Those assurances were based on trials that tested a completely different product. The legal immunity protecting manufacturers was never meant to cover deliberate deception. It was meant to encourage rapid innovation during emergencies, not to shield fraud. Right now, the shots remain on the market. The manufacturers remain protected, and the contaminated vials sit in freezers and waste bins around the world, evidence of a switch that was never supposed to be discovered, but was.